Today we welcome the Reverend Alan Bentrup, Canon for Mission and Evangelism with the Diocese of Upper South Carolina.
Greetings, my name is Alan Bentrup and I'm Canon for Evangelism and Mission at the Episcopal Diocese of Upper South Carolina. I'm standing here in the courtyard of Trinity Cathedral in Columbia, where our offices are, right behind me. So as we talk a little bit about our devotional, A Good and Joyful Thing, thought I'd walk us around our offices a bit. It's a Sunday, so there's no one here, but we are mostly working from home. And so this place is pretty empty most days. There's usually one person here to answer the phones, be at the door, things like that. But I wanted to show you around a little bit at the offices and tell you a little bit about what we are doing. Down here on the first floor, there's my office. Courtney Thompson over in that corner, she's our communications director. You might have worked with her when you're trying to share a story of something going on in the diocese. That is Tracy Foreman's office. She handles some administrative tasks around diocesan house, helps keep this place running smoothly, and is also transitioning into administrative work with the bishop. So as you start to get in touch with the bishop or try to arrange meetings or events with him, you will work with Tracy as she takes on more and more of that responsibility. So we're going to head on upstairs. We're about to go into an elevator, which is just a plain elevator. It's not anything very beautiful. But our devotional theme that y'all been working through is a good and joyful thing. So a little bit of reflecting on that. It of course makes me think about the Eucharistic prayer, where we pray, "It is a good and joyful thing, always and everywhere, to give thanks unto you, Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth." Always and everywhere. Those are two themes that I want to talk about in a minute, but let's continue our tour. Down here we have Frank Ballard's office, and behind that, Canon Drew Hazel. They work a lot in transition ministry, congregations that are in the midst of search for new clergy. They work with vestry development, and in those times when there's conflicts in parishes, Frank and Drew do a lot of that work. Down there is Canon Jimmy Hartley, and next to him, you can't see her office, is Caitlin Kinney. They work a lot in congregational vitality. They also do a lot of work with Christian formation, particularly youth ministers and the Diocesan Youth Leadership Committee, making sure that we are formed as Christians and that youth events and other events like happening, things like that, can go on. And then here at the end of the office, we have Cynthia Hendricks and Shanda Kelly. They're our financial staff. They work with congregations to make sure insurance issues, clergy insurance, other questions about property, taxes, all of that. They're the people that help make that happen. And then down here, we have Bishop Waldo's office. So you all know, or maybe you don't know, what a bishop does. But I want to talk for a little bit about our devotional. Remember I said I wanted to talk about always and everywhere. And to use the bishops that we've had in Upper South Carolina to talk about what it means to be joyful, always and everywhere. It's a good and joyful thing, always and everywhere, to give thanks unto you. If you ever come to Diocesan House, you'll see portraits that line the wall. You might have seen some as I was walking by. This is Bishop Gary. Bishop Gary was never our bishop here in Upper South Carolina, but he was bishop of the Diocese of South Carolina when we voted to become our own diocese up here. Bishop Gary is also a martyr. He was shot and killed by one of his clergy because Bishop Gary took a stand to say that our African American brothers and sisters are worthy of full inclusion in the life of the church. And he worked toward reconciliation. He worked to help bring us together. And one of his clergy didn't like that, walked into his office and shot him. And so we remember in the calendar of saints and martyrs in our diocese, we remember Bishop Gary and his life and ministry. We have other bishops down here. I won't give you their bios. Maybe you recognize some of them. The bishops on this wall, They served after World War II, when our country was figuring out what it means to come back together, when so many of our young men and women lost their lives. They served during the AIDS and HIV epidemic, when we tried to figure out what it means to be followers of Jesus in a time when we had uncertainty around health and safety. They served in the 50s and 60s in the midst of civil rights struggles, when we as Christians worked to figure out what it means to be followers of Jesus together with our brothers and sisters that don't think or look or maybe act like us, but people that are beloved children of God just the same. We have more bishops here who served leading up to and during the turn of the millennium, when we as Christians tried to figure out what it means to be followers of Jesus in a world that's changing rapidly all around us. There's Bishop Henderson. There's another bishop over here. I believe that's Bishop Cole. Yeah, Bishop Cole served 1953 to 1963. If you know your U.S. history, you know that was a tumultuous time in our country leading up to much of the civil rights struggles, many similarities to what's going on in our world today. But it is a good and joyful thing, always and everywhere, to give thanks. Always and everywhere. My 12-year-old son recently bought a little silver cross to wear around his neck, partly because he thinks he's becoming a teenager and he needs fancy jewelry, but partly because that cross has on it, what made him buy this particular one, is it has Philippians 4:13 inscribed. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He's in middle school. He's a swimmer. And so when I asked him about that verse, he says, when I'm struggling, it helps me think God is with me. He's further along than I was. When I was a teenager, I had a poster with that verse on my wall, and I used it as a good luck charm. When I want an A, when I want to get a hit in the baseball game, I'm just going to think I can do all things through Christ. I can do it. But what my son is hinting at, and what Paul gets at in that verse, is that it's not just about good things happening. It's not just I can climb a mountain or I can accomplish this great thing. Because in the verses leading up to that, Paul talks about his situation. He says, I know what it is to be hungry, and I know what it is to be well-fed. I know what it is to be persecuted, and I know what it is to be in power. I know what it is to have everything I need, and I know what it is to be in want. If Paul were writing today, he might say, I know what it is to be healthy, and I know what it is to be fearful for my health and safety. If he were writing today, Paul might say, I know what it is to have people see my worth, and I know what it is for people to question me just because of how I look. Paul's talking about always and everywhere. In the good times and the bad times, in the hard times, and the easy, if there are, easy times. And so that leads me to the last portrait. If you were paying attention on our tour, you didn't see a portrait or a picture of Bishop Waldo. He will, of course, get a portrait as his episcopate comes to an end, but we do have a photo of him hanging here. And he is more than just being our bishop, he's a symbol of our unity. And so as I showed you these bishops and talked about their ministries in these trying times, it's not about these people whose paintings hang on the wall. It's about what they represent. They led or helped lead our diocese during these times of transition, these times of challenge, these times that we wrestled with what it means to be a Christian. And so see yourself in all of these paintings. See Church of the Advent in all of these paintings. Who were you? Who was Church of the Advent? Who are we as the people of God in these hard times, in these hard situations? So that leads me to Bishop Waldo. That is him at Camp Gravitt going off the blob. You'll see a lifeguard there laughing at him. It's always good to laugh at your bishop. And so we have this hanging in here with these fancy portraits of people that served a long time ago in difficult times or easy times. And we can look at that and we can see being a Christian today, when we're wrestling with what it means to follow Jesus, it's different than it has been, and it's always changing. But our goal to make, equip, and send and be mature disciples remains. And our goal to have joy and to laugh and to have hope and to have faith remains. And so as I walk down these halls, I see this picture of my bishop, and he's wearing a purple shirt. He's wearing a collar, and he is about to go in the lake and grab it. So there is time for joy, always and everywhere. Even in the hard times, even in the difficult places, we have joy because we have Jesus Christ. Thank you.